one thing I was curious about was I've heard you talk about on a previous podcast, imposter syndrome. So I just wanted to ask you about that and hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I still get it. I think it's completely natural, and I think everybody gets it. There's points where I guess, you realize that, hey, I like, whether it's in a meeting or whether it's just after you do something, and if I have taken a piece of audio that doesn't necessarily sound great and make it sound much better, there's little things that you have to kind of realize. And I'm also by no means a therapist or psychologist, just to preface that, but like, there's definitely little things that you need to hold on to when you get those little bursts of like, oh crap, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm not just here because I'm flying by the seat of my pants, or I'm not just here, faking it till I make it, but I actually do know what I'm doing. And holding on to those little things I found and remembering them and kind of putting them back into your mind really, really helps. That said, I think that everybody experiences imposter syndrome in one way or another at one time or another, whether or not they admit it or to themselves or not. And it's definitely still something that I get, every once in a while. I don't think it's something that will ever go away, because you're always learning something new. You're always being exposed to a new situation. You're not doing the same exact thing every day in a completely repetitive motion. And just being in those new situations is, that slight anxiety that you may get, or that, I definitely get sometimes. I think it's completely natural. And all you can do is dig back into your thoughts and kind of push ahead those few things that you're like, oh no, like I know what I'm doing, and people recognize what I'm doing, that I know what I'm doing, et cetera, et cetera.
And this next question isn't in the context of imposter syndrome, but has there ever been a situation where you've kind of looked around and been like, wow, I can't believe that I'm here right now?
Yeah. I try to do it more and more. Obviously, in the beginning, starting working here, that definitely happened. And honestly, that happened when I started working at Shapeways. Even like when I realized like, hey, I'm doing something that I enjoy. And it wasn't necessarily where I stayed, and that wasn't my complete end game. But I think there's different points in life that that just sort of hits. Specifically here at Vayner, yeah, that it happens to me all the time, in a great way. It's really, really refreshing to kind of be able to look around and say like, hey, the people that I'm working with are great. Like, these people are my friends. They appreciate me. They appreciate what I'm doing. And like, holy crap, like, also like, look where I'm working. Like, this is really, really fun. And honestly, for me, like the biggest part about it is that just, I love what I'm doing. Like, it's not something that I could necessarily say earlier in my life. Like, I didn't love what I was doing when I was working at a Starbucks or working, doing data entry at a random place. Like, I didn't really enjoy what I was doing, and I was not really happy at that point. And that's not necessarily to say that like you're not happy if you work at Starbucks. Like, maybe you love coffee, maybe you love what you do, and that's awesome. But it just, at that point in my life, I wasn't satisfied with what I was doing. So taking a moment every once in a while to kind of like stop what I'm doing, look around, and appreciate where I am, is something that's become really, really important to me.
And what would you say to people in that situation? People that are working a job that they're not too happy to be at, they're just not content with where they're at in life right now. What would your advice be to those people? What would you say to them?
Figure out a way to try different things. And I say that because when I was working those things, I was working three things at once. I would work at Starbucks during the day, and then work a catering gig real fast in between, my morning shift and bartending at night. I would just try to pack as much in as possible and meet as many people as I possibly could. And I wasn't necessarily in like the best part of, New York to do that. Like, I was in Westchester, where there's not a ton necessarily going on. But try different things. That's the number one piece of advice that I could give. And it's something that I can look back on and say like, hey, I tried different things. Like, in college, I worked at a Dick's Sporting Goods for 2 days before I realized I don't like this. Like, I'm just not built for this. This isn't me. And it sucks in the moment. It definitely does. And it feels like you're never going to get out of that repetitive cycle, but it happens. And it just like, it takes time.